As mentioned in the first episode of Dark Disturbances, AlterWorld's origins can be traced back to 2003 with the haunting of the house where me and my brother Chris lived at the time. Although unexplained phenomena occurred at random in the house on Clark Street for years, it wasn't until me, Chris, and our cousin Daryl began investigating this activity that it escalated in both frequency and aggressiveness. After 20 years, we're finally telling the entire story.
After the debacle that was Investigation 3, we talked it over and decided that we were going to go back at it, but this time we were going to do a more fundamental approach, back to basics, if you will.
A no bullshit attitude. We decided from that point forward, we weren't going to let whatever was in that house goad us into emotional responses. Our jobs were simple. Get in there, maybe poke the nest a little bit if you have to, but then step back, observe, record. It was the start of a philosophy that pretty much persists to this day. Not long into the first night,
There was a big chain of events that happened that, we didn't unfortunately get much of the evidence on tape.
because like the other 99% of the time we investigated that house, the activity was one step ahead of us. But this chain of events is still worth discussing because
It was definitely some interesting stuff that happened.
So I was up in the attic and I believe I was hearing noises up there.
While we're up there, we hear Chris.
Say something about
I believe I was in the kitchen at this time. I look back, I remember seeing in like the living room, going into the drum room was like a big orb, but it looked like it came out and around and then into the drum room and headed towards the closet that was inside there.
I stayed up in the attic a few more minutes. I was still hearing some odd little noises up there.
Sounds like to the left of me, ahead. Around 10 o'clock.
So after a bit, we all came back down to the second floor.
While I was in the drum room, I remember that I was getting like wobbly vision.
Here?
Right in front of my face. You guys see that?
Where?
It might just be my eyes, I don't know.
Again, it could have just been my eyes. You know, I'm not sure at this point what it could have been, but it was very creepy, to say the least, because of everything else that was going on.
Chris went back over toward the kitchen area, and I believe he said he heard like a loud thump. So naturally, me and Robert, we came rushing in as quick as we could.
Where? How close to the stairs?
Like I turned like this and went like that, I started walking away, and it was like, pretty cold in here because the windows open, but it's really cold in here.
Like, yeah.
Right around here, I heard a thump.
What, by the top of the stairs?
Like, like that thump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was when Chris started talking about how the attic was different.
Here, kill that light real quick. The kitchen light. Now there's something's fucked up.
What do you mean?
Something's really fucked. Turn the light back on. You know how before there's no fucking light coming in?
Yeah.
There's tons of light. Now there's light coming in.
It seemed like the attic itself, after everything that went down, after Ghost Hunt 3, it seemed different.
I don't know. Something just doesn't feel right.
What do you mean?
Like something's changing, you know?
The darkness wasn't as swallowing. It was a little bit lighter in there.
Like, before it was fucking darker than shit up there, right? And that's where all that activity's at, right?
Yeah.
We started hearing noises up in the attic again.
I heard that.
We heard like a laugh.
From the entrance to the attic.
And it just sounded maniacal.
And it's unfortunate that the camera never picked it up.
But all three of us heard it
It was almost like
in mock agreement with us.
And, you know, just really kind of freaky.
Sounded like somebody laughing. Right up the stairs.
Chris, of course, being Chris, couldn't help himself.
Chris ended up running up the attic steps to try and catch it, but with all of his keys and everything jiggling, he kind of ruined the element of surprise.
While I'm filming Chris, I hear Robert from behind me.
Dude, I saw the orb move.
Where?
Get back in this fucking closet.
Rob ended up seeing pretty much the same orb I saw.
It was whitish gray, was decent size. I mean, it wasn't like a little tiny speck of dust or anything like that. It was pretty good size.
Fuck. I was fucking playing with us.
I could hear something in the closet. Chris came over and took a look.
There's some movement in there.
And it was almost like something came whooshing out of there.
Okay.
It was almost like something ran out past Chris and past me.
It felt like a whoosh of air.
And in doing so, it
Knocked over this drum.
This is getting fucked up.
In hindsight, this could have been something to where the carpet may have been kind of pushing it, and then with us walking past it, that caused the carpet to knock it over. At the time, of course, we're just like, oh God, But looking back in hindsight, it could have been something like that. But still, we did feel the air rush past us. That was very creepy, to say the least.
after the incident with the drum, there was a temporary lull in activity. So we were hanging out in the drum room, and I found a setting on the high 8 camera we were using to switch it to widescreen, which, looking back on it now, just cropped the picture. Should have just left it alone. So Chris left for a little while. Me and Robert continued the investigation, and the only thing of note that occurred during this time period.
Did you hear that?
Dude. The fuck, man? You stepped on those steps.
We again heard noises up in the attic, so we went into the kitchen. And we heard what sounded like a thump on the steps leading up to the attic. And then we heard another one and a shuffle. Every single hair on my neck was standing up.
Tell the fucking steps, dude. Why ain't it showing up a fucking camera?
And me and Robert, we both knew that something was in that room with us at that moment. It didn't last very long, but it was very odd. Shortly after that, that was when we decided to conclude the active part of the investigation, and we started discussing where to set up the camera for surveillance. So I remember setting the camera up on a metal folding chair.
Yep, it's recording now.
It was set up right around the doorway to the drum room.
Huh? I said we're batting 1,000 today.
Me and Chris, we went downstairs.
Count out everything.
If you listen closely enough on the tape, you can hear us close the door. We go down the stairs. And we open up the door to the front porch.
We went into the front porch because that's where me and Chris would smoke cigarettes.
And then you can actually hear that door close.
And right after that happens, you can see like a sliver of light begin to expand on the left side of the frame,
And it's that door that leads up there to the living room.
slowly opening.
And then it flings open, slams against the back wall.
One thing that I remember very clearly about that door,
If we didn't close the door all the way,
it would come ajar
but it would only stay open maybe
a foot or two and then stay there like that. And then Right after you hear the smack of the door on the wall,
you can hear a noise.
there is this odd noise.
It's almost like a... I remember we went down there, and I can't remember what we were talking about, but we were, me and Daryl were BSing and stuff, and we never heard a thing. We had no idea any of this is going on.
Me and Chris were downstairs in the living room, and I decided to go upstairs and, fetch the camera. And I can recall going up the stairs, and I looked up and I saw that door was open. So I remember yelling back to Chris, like, hey, the door's open or whatever.
And we're like, uh-oh.
And as soon as I stepped foot onto the second floor through that doorway, I felt some seriously bad vibes up there. I can recall, unplugging the camera and getting it out of there as quickly as I could. I think I remember kind of running down the stairs with it. Why didn't we point the camera toward that door at that time? No, we had it pointed that way, so it's just going to do this. It's kind of like it was fucking teasing us. It's just another example of how that damn thing seemed aware of what we were doing at almost every turn. So the next night, we set up the camera. This time it was pointing directly at that door leading into the hallway.
And then me and Daryl go downstairs. We're in the living room, we've got the TV on mute. We're kind of talking a little bit. Nothing real loud because we know we have the camera rolling upstairs.
We knew we would have to go back upstairs in a couple of hours and switch tapes and maybe switch the position of the camera.
And we're hanging out pretty much right underneath that camera. And we got the windows open.
The camera's audio picks up what sounds like an argument going on. We were sitting downstairs in the living room while the camera was rolling, and we were directly below the camera's position.
We didn't hear anything.
This argument starts and stops repeatedly over the course of about 15 to 20 minutes. Now, sound can be a funny thing, and we could have picked up an argument from nearby.
Maybe it's through the alley coming through, and we just couldn't hear it because where me and Daryl were at.
Also, what you hear on all the footage from that time period, that sounds almost like, like gears turning. That was the heads of the camera slowly becoming misaligned. At the time, we had no idea what was causing the noise in that camera. After a couple of hours, I went upstairs and I switched the tapes and I adjusted the position of the camera. The second tape had nothing on it. I mean, I don't know if we picked up like some sort of residual event that happened in that house, or if the camera's microphone picked up some guys arguing outside that for some reason me and Chris didn't hear downstairs. Looking back on that fourth investigation,
we went back to more of a basic style, how we used to, more watching and observing instead of being an antagonist.
we didn't go near that collage.
It kind of worked because we had a little bit more, I wouldn't say solid evidence, but we had some really good activity.
I definitely believe that it was trying to get into our heads again like it had in the previous hunt.
But we stayed focused and didn't let our emotions get away from us.
But it might have upset whatever entity was inside this house because it might have been feeding off this anger and this fear that we had.
We think that, at least for a time there, we were dealing with the activity of 2, maybe 3 different entities. But after the third and fourth investigations, there was a noticeable change in the atmosphere of the whole house. And it wasn't the changing of the seasons either. It was almost like that suffocating darkness that was up in the attic had bled out through all the other rooms somewhat. We think that by this time, the shape, that shadow entity that Robert had seen as a kid, was really starting to assert itself as the one responsible for most of the activity we were encountering. And after what had happened to Chris in September, I should have known that me and the shape were also on a collision course. It was just a matter of time.